Good morning. My name is Dara Rose, and on behalf of the Wallace Foundation, I would like to start today's discussion by thanking you and our esteemed presenters for participating in this webinar entitled Reducing Summer Learning Loss, Implementing Successful Programs, jointly presented today by the Wallace Foundation and the National League of Cities in association with the National Summer Learning Association and Child Trends. This one-hour webinar, along with the PowerPoint presentations and reference papers, will be available later this week on our website at www.wallacefoundation.org, as well as National League of Cities website, nlc.org/IYEF. If you find this discussion helpful, we hope you register for updates on future webinars and new research commissioned by Wallace, all of which is available free of charge on our website. Should you need any technical support during the webinar, please call 1-800-263-6317, option 2. The Wallace Foundation seeks to support and share effective ideas and practices that will strengthen educational leadership, arts participation, and out-of-school time learning, OST learning. While summer is a time used by many school districts for additional instruction and remediation, it is also an integral part of the OST landscape. There are a number of reasons why our foundation is exploring how to make better use of summer for children, particularly those in most need. First, as you will hear, summer learning loss is a key cause of the academic achievement gap between poor children and wealthier children. Second, according to the public agenda study, All Work and No Play, 4 in 10 children say they really don't have enough good choices in the summer. And 6 out of 10 parents say summer is the most difficult time of year to find productive things for their children to do. That's why we commissioned the National Summer Learning Association and Child Trends to author several white papers on summer learning this year, as these papers will serve as the basis for today's discussion. We've learned over the last 6 years that leadership is a crucial factor in increasing overall participation in high-quality out-of-school time programs so that more youth participate often enough to gain learning and developmental benefits. So we're so pleased that so many education, nonprofit, and municipal leaders, as well as leading researchers and private funders, have joined us on today's call, and that we're co-sponsoring it with NLC's Institute for Youth Education and Families. Bella Shaw-Spooner, Principal Associate of After School Initiatives for the Institute, will serve as moderator for today's discussion. But before Bella introduces the presenters and describes the agenda for the webinar, I want to mention that we're very pleased to have over 475 people participating on this call. That said, we'll do our best to be responsive to you and your questions as time permits. We'll be collecting and holding your questions, and we'll pose them to the presenters during the Q&A session preceding the presentations. You may ask questions throughout the discussion using the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen. To access the questions panel, click on the plus sign located on the left corner of the questions tab. If you have questions for specific presenters, please note them when you type your questions. Thank you very much. Bella?
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. We are delighted to have this partnership with the Wallace Foundation to be able to bring you this webinar on summer learning. The National League of Cities has a dedicated program area within our Institute for Youth Education and Families that focuses on out-of-school time, where we work with city leaders to help them create citywide systems of after-school, which for us includes considering the range of opportunities available for children and youth in the summer. Given that after-school and out-of-school time is a priority area for MLC, we've recognized that we need to dig deeper into the summer learning issue, because we've learned that cities and towns have incredible gaps in services and opportunities during these months, and it's a key time to support learning and enrichment. Our After-School Policy Advisors Network and our Education Policy Advisors Network, which we call APAN and EPAN, respectively, are groups of city leaders that are concerned about these issue areas. Many of them are on the call today, so welcome. We have heard from them that youth in their communities have summer needs, and that the city can play and is playing a role to fill those gaps with partners. But everyone needs to do more which has definitely been a challenge for cities and community-based organizations and schools during these tough economic times. NLC plans to learn more about what cities are doing in particular during these months, and we will share our findings with you in the near future. I wanted to mention one resource before we begin. Our Institute for Youth Education and Families just published a special 10th anniversary report entitled The State of City Leadership for Children and Families. There's a chapter in there on after school that highlights innovative approaches cities have taken, as well as emerging and established trends. The examples of city strategies may seem to be specific to after school only, but many of these efforts span over the summer as well. So I encourage you to take a look on our website. All right, so let's dive into this webinar. Our agenda is as you see on the screen. We have a great list of speakers that we have with us today. We're going to hear presentations by them, and then we're going to have a brief Q&A at the end. First, we have Ron Fairchild, who is the founding CEO of the National Summer Learning Association. The association works with over 50 states with more than 5,000 summer learning program providers that serve more than 2 million young people across the country. Mr. Fairchild also directs the activity of the Summer Learning Advocates, an affiliated organization focused on increasing public funding for quality summer learning programs in low-income communities. The work of both the National Summer Learning Association and Summer Learning Advocates builds on over 15 years of experience coming from the National Center for Summer Learning at Johns Hopkins, where Ron was executive director from 2002 to 2009. Next, we will have Dr. Mary Terzian, who is a research scientist with Child Trends. She has expertise in the areas of positive youth development, adolescent risk behaviors, drug abuse, violence prevention, program evaluation, and quantitative statistical methods. Since joining Child Trends, she's been involved in a number of research projects related to youth development and child well-being. After our researcher presenters, we will have our city leaders speaking about work that's happening in their communities. We have Sabrina Sutton, who is the Special Assistant for Youth and Education in the Office of Mayor Sheila Dixon, Mayor of the City of Baltimore. Sabrina is responsible for working with state and local partners to develop an integrated system that enhances youth development and ensures that Baltimore City youth are ready for work, college, and life. Prior to working in the mayor's office, she worked for Sheila Dixon when she was the City Council President of Baltimore, and Sabrina was the Youth and Education Director for her. And lastly, we have Maxine Quintana from the City of Denver. She's the Director of Student Programs for the Mayor's Office for Education and Children. Maxine has been working with a number of community-based organizations and the Denver Public School District to increase access for low-income students to quality programming focused on school readiness, student engagement, and youth leadership. Maxine was also recognized last year by the After School Alliance as an after-school champion for the state of Colorado. So I think we have a great group of speakers for us, and we'll just dive right in. So Ron, please share with us what the research says about summer learning loss. This issue has been getting a lot of attention lately. What's happening to achievement and skill development during these months?
Well, thank you, Bella, and thank you, Dara, for hosting this webinar. And I'm thrilled to be able to join with so many colleagues from around the country this morning to talk about this issue. This is an issue that we have a tremendous amount of research supporting, and I hope everyone can see my PowerPoint presentation on the screen. I want to start by just talking about what typically happens to young people during the summer months. There's over 100 years of research that confirms academic losses and 39 empirical studies that show that when young people aren't engaged in constructive learning activities during the summer months, they experience setbacks. In the area of math achievement, all young people across the board are at risk, regardless of socioeconomic status, of experiencing some setbacks during the early elementary school grades and math performance. But in the area of reading, it's particularly significant that low-income kids lose significant ground in reading performance over the summer months. We also know from some emerging research that kids who are already at risk of developing childhood obesity or already overweight gain weight much more significantly, much more quickly during the summer months than they do during the regular school year. So both in terms of academics and in broader health and nutrition, young people are at risk of significant setbacks. In the area of reading, I wanted to show this illustration that generally shows the relationship between summer learning opportunities and the achievement gap. On the top line, you see the typical reading trajectory, reading achievement trajectory for middle-income students, where they're learning a significant rate during the school year, during the kindergarten first, second, third, and fourth grade years, and only making slight gains during the summer months because of access that their families provide to support and resources during the summer. We like to talk a lot about a resource faucet that gets shut off for kids during the summer months, and some families are able to compensate for that faucet, turn that faucet back on by providing all kinds of enriching experiences for their kids. And what happens with low-income kids, as you see that there's a gap in reading performance that already exists when kids begin school at the starting gate in kindergarten, and that gap widens significantly, not primarily due to what happens during the school year, but a significant portion of that achievement gap grows because of what happens during the summer months. And again, if you look at this graphic, by the end of 5th grade, summer learning loss in reading contributes to low-income kids being behind by close to 2.5 years in performance than their more affluent peers. So clearly this isn't the only strategy that needs to happen to close achievement gaps in this country, but summers play a significant role in the growth in the achievement gap, particularly during the elementary school years. And if we're serious about efforts to close achievement gaps, efforts to make sure that low-income kids have more opportunities for learning, summers need to be a central part of any district strategy, any community strategy to close achievement gaps. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mary, who's going to talk a little bit about some solutions.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Now that we've discussed the issue of summer learning loss for low-income students, let's look at the research on summer learning programs, which are a possible solution for reducing summer learning loss. First, let's quickly define what we mean when we refer to summer learning programs. Summer learning programs are summer programs that seek to maintain and increase students' academic knowledge and skills. They differ from traditional summer school in that they are typically recreational, engaging students in games and sports, enriching, including academic enrichment activities, for example, observing plant life in forests to learn about earth science, relational, promoting positive, caring relationships with adults and peers, voluntary, include students of varied skill levels, and typically take place over a full day, usually about 4 to 8 weeks during the summer. Our studies show that younger children, children from higher income households, and white children are more likely to participate in summer learning programs than older children, children from lower income households, and non-white children. Overall, at least 1 in every 4 students attend a summer program, excluding summer school. So what does the evidence for summer learning programs look like? When we use the word evidence, we are actually referring to a range of evidence levels. The level of evidence depends on the rigor of the evaluation study. This pyramid shows 4 levels of evaluation rigor. Experimental studies comprise the top 2 rungs of this pyramid, and quasi-experimental and non-experimental studies comprise the bottom 2 rungs. Experimental studies are more rigorous because participants are randomly assigned to the study conditions. Thus, the evaluation of program outcomes is not contaminated by pre-existing differences between the intervention and control groups. When we talk about evidence-based programs, we're typically referring to programs with a high level of evidence. This presentation shares findings distilled from studies at the top 2 rungs of this pyramid, experimental studies. We focus on these studies because they allow us to make causal inferences about program impacts and in turn allow us to identify promising practices. So what does the best available evidence tell us? Overall, findings across the 11 experimentally evaluated summer learning programs we reviewed in our study suggest that, number 1, reading achievement gains are possible. Of the 7 experimentally evaluated programs targeting reading achievement, 6 had positive impacts, including 3 programs with mixed impacts, that is, those that had positive impacts on one subgroup but not another, or at post-test but not at follow-up, or on some measures but not others within the same outcome domain. Number 2, math achievement gains are also possible. 2 out of 3 programs that examined impacts on math improved math skills, and 1 had positive impacts at post-test but not at follow-up. 4 more programs delivered math lessons to children, but these programs did not evaluate their impacts on math skills, or at least did not report their impacts. 3, impacts of summer learning programs on high school completion look less promising. High school completion was evaluated in 4 studies, and only 1 of them worked. 1 program increased high school completion rates, 2 programs found no impacts, and the 4th program had impacts that dissipated over time. Also, we looked at career development outcomes. We found that impacts on employment are similarly lacking. Only 1 out of 4 experimentally evaluated programs that examined labor force outcomes improved employment. This program had impacts 3 years after program completion. We did not summarize program impacts on outcomes evaluated by only 1 or 2 studies due to insufficient evidence. These outcomes included educational outcomes such as engagement in post-secondary education and college enrollment, career development outcomes such as career decision-making skills and work-related attitudes, as well as welfare receipt, and youth development outcomes such as social skills, self-concept, self-efficacy, and reproductive health. Now we'll review some promising practices that came out of our review of 11 experimentally evaluated programs. As a caveat, most of these practices were successful just over 50% of the time and are informed by a limited number of programs. Therefore, additional research is needed to support these findings. Overall, 4 intervention strategies appear to be related to academic improvement. The first one is complement group learning with individual support. Examples of individual support included mentoring, tutoring, career counseling, financial aid advising, and homework assistance. Second, make activities interesting and enjoyable. Programs that supplemented academic instruction with enrichment and recreational activities tended to work. Examples of enrichment activities include discussing current events, integrating popular music and technology, and offering opportunities to be creative, such as dance, art, and photography. Third, ground lessons or concepts in a real-world context. For example, students may learn about different careers by going to a job fair, or they can learn how to write fiction by participating in storytelling events in the community. Fourth, integrate hands-on activities. Didactic lectures may increase knowledge, but lectures are not very effective at changing behavior. Alternatively, interactive forms of instruction, such as engaging children in games, group projects, field trips to historic sites, nature expeditions, and science experiments, are all ways to make learning more interesting and applied. Other promising practices include teaching intervention content that complements grade-level curricular standards. Educational programs that teach academic content that complements what children are learning during the school year tend to work. Another promising practice is hiring experienced trained teachers to deliver the academic lessons. 4 out of 5 programs that use this strategy improved at least one academic outcome. Experienced teachers had at least a bachelor's degree and at least a few years of teaching experience. Finally, limiting class sizes to 15 or fewer students with 2 to 4 teachers per classroom also appears to be a promising practice for improving academic outcomes. Additional program improvement strategies suggested by research on summer learning programs are to make programs affordable and accessible by offering parents free childcare during parent events, by providing food and transportation to participants, and waiving application fees for economically disadvantaged students is also recommended. Also, to involve the community as funders, as volunteers, and as recruiters. Finally, involving parents is another promising program improvement strategy. You can involve parents in planning activities and special events, or even in program design and implementation. If parents feel they're playing a part in shaping their children's summer learning experiences and feel comfortable with the teachers who work with their children, they will be more likely to send their children to these programs. Our research also suggests that programs could be enhanced by including activities to promote health and fitness and youth and development, or at least by evaluating program impacts on these outcome areas. Overall, summer learning programs hold the potential to impact the outcomes of disadvantaged children and youth. The research just presented is summarized in a What Works fact sheet on summer learning programs recently released by Child Trends. You can download this fact sheet by clicking on the link at the bottom of this screen or by going to www.childtrends.org/youth-development. You can also find it on the Wallace Foundation's website. Next, Ron will discuss the opportunities and challenges presented by the current policy and financing landscape for summer learning programs.
Great. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. As Mary suggested, our white paper focuses on policy and financing, and I wanted to start the conversation with an interesting quote from U.S. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan when he was asked whether districts and states could use recovery funds to create and then expand summer learning opportunities. He said that not only states and districts, not only can they use those funds, but to think very, very seriously about doing that. And he mentioned that this is one of the best investments they could make. So I think that's an important bit of context just to know that this is a strategy that the administration is strongly promoting as we look to close achievement gaps and improve educational opportunities. To go with that, our paper focused on the policy landscape at 3 levels, the federal, state, and local level. In the federal landscape, we examined the policy areas of education, child care, nutrition, youth employment, and service learning as potential sources of funding at the federal level to support summer learning programs. We found that there was no single federal funding source dedicated to summer learning programs as those were described by Mary. We saw that federal policy generally tends to be overly broad, meaning that there are a lot of potential sources for funding that could be used, but there's no specific tracking or reporting requirements that go with them to actually be able to zero in on the current level of federal investment that's going for summer learning programs. Or we saw funding streams that were extremely narrow, tended to be categorical for one specific area, but really didn't offer the opportunities that are necessary at the state and local level to combine creatively and braid some of those funding resources together. At the state level, we found that 35 states have summer education policies in place at the state level. We did see more significant resources at the state and local level, which is not surprising given the way education funding generally works in the United States. We found a wide variety of policies, that generally tended to emphasize one of two things. One, state policies requiring summer school and remediation, or policies designed at the state level for special programs in gifted and talented programs during the summer months. In general, we found poor alignment across state agencies and, again, a basic lack of data, particularly about access and participation, particularly when it came to actually being able to determine how much, for example, Title I dollars at the state level were flowing to local districts and how those districts were actually using those Title I funds to support an agenda around summer learning opportunities. The local level, schools, not surprisingly, are the largest single provider of programs. We found a significant amount of coverage happening at local parks and recreation departments. The child care vouchers provide some modest support. Options for youth in high school tended to be few, and those opportunities tended to focus exclusively on summer jobs. We also found in the highlights and showcases of state and local policy models and examples that partnerships that can emerge between agencies and organizations offer the best opportunity to leverage existing resources and to make best use of the funds that are available, but also to make the case for why there needs to be dedicated and focused funding in this particular area. We think there's some strategic opportunities right now for the field to take advantage of. Obviously, we need to use the philanthropic investments, which are significant right now at the local level, supporting innovative summer programs at a small scale. We need to use those philanthropic investments to leverage a bigger investment of public dollars during the summer months. And really, we're positioned very well given the stimulus funds that are available right now, especially through Title I and Title I school improvement dollars, to actually use those funds to support a summer learning agenda. We're also working very intensively with the department and with others around the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. We think there are opportunities with that reauthorization to really focus on summer learning in the context of closing the achievement gap and looking for ways to support innovative federal and state policies. We are working in California, for example, that just convened a legislative task force. Rhode Island just passed legislation to authorize a legislative task force to study this particular issue. We know that there are districts around the country that are investing in new models and using the ARRA funds as an opportunity to push forward with a new vision of summer school. This is an area of reform that's desperately needed. We need to move to a model of summer school at the local level that looks much more like some of the programs that Mary was describing. There is an increase in the duration and intensity of those programs so that they look more like a 6-week full-day model, that they expand participation to all students in school-wide Title I programs so that really the investments that districts are making are matching up with the research that shows that kids in low-income communities and low-income neighborhoods are the ones that are at most risk, regardless of where they fall on the test score spectrum. Do we need to make some systematic investments, particularly in the early grades, and expand participation? We also need to look at new strategies for blending academic learning and hands-on activities to foster 21st century skills. We need to strengthen partnerships between community organizations and other public agencies. We also need to look at summer school programs that can incorporate arts, music, sports, and make a really concerted effort to provide free breakfast and lunch for kids who qualify for those programs. We know that only 1 in 5 kids who qualify for free and reduced meals have access to them nationally during the summer months. And then continue to use summer as a time for innovation, for professional development for educators, for assistant principals to have an opportunity to run programs and have an opportunity to really provide leadership and to develop new skills during the summer months, and then to begin pushing districts and encouraging more people to plan ahead of time and plan early with the proper infrastructure, data collection, and accountability that needs to go with any kind of investment like this and any kind of reform priority. So those are some of the strategic opportunities that we see and that we highlight in our paper. We look forward to the next presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Ron. I think a number of key points that you've made here, and I hope all the folks on the line are noting these down. We will have the whole webinar, the audio portion, as well as the PowerPoints available on the Wallace Foundation's website. We've got a number of questions about that. So you can rest your note-taking a little easy and know that this will be available to you. Thank you very much, Ron, and I think that you've really highlighted a lot of key points there, especially in regards to what can be done at the local level, and I think your point about leveraging partnerships is really very right on, and I think we'll hear that from our next speakers. I want to also remind folks that you can start to enter your questions in on that side panel on the right side. You can type in your questions as the next speakers are presenting, and we will get to your questions right afterwards. So let's turn to Sabrina from Baltimore. Love to hear about programs that you're involved in, as well as your response to the presentation just heard. Sabrina?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Bella. First, I'd like to thank the Wallace Foundation and the National League of Cities for hosting this webinar and also for asking us to participate and share. For the past several years, Baltimore City government has been one of the major leaders in funding after-school and extended learning programs. But it wasn't until last year we really started looking strategically at how we could assist in reducing summer learning loss. I'm in partnership with Mr. Ashley Stewart, the Director of Community Initiatives with the National Summer Learning Association. For the first time, city government, Baltimore City Schools, Recreation and Parks, our Mayor's Office of Employment Development, and the Enoch Pratt Library came together to look at how we could intentionally do this better. We also looked at how we could better align public resources in tough fiscal times and how we can better serve our young people during summer months. As a result of the hard work, we were able to do the following. Recreation and Parks partnered with 33 schools that were attached to their rec centers. After the morning academic component of the summer program was over, the students were able to go to the connecting rec center and participate in enrichment and in physical activities while staying in a safe environment until 6 o'clock. The advantage for our working families is that their children would be supported academically and socially all under one roof. Our Mayor's Office of Employment Development, who administers our youth work program, provided the summer job programs in the public and private sectors for our high school students. The mayor was consistently and has been consistently invested in youth works because she firmly believes that every Baltimore City youth who wants a summer job should have that opportunity. So we were able to fund for over 6,500 young people to work over the summer. But one of the good things was that some of the young people who had to attend summer school were able to also be employed through our Summer Works program. And this is a partnership that we came up with the Mayor's Office of Employment Development to make sure that some of our young people who were working during the summer did not miss the opportunity to also work through the Youth Works program.
Sabrina, if you could speak up just a little bit, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Our Family League, who is our local management board, also allocated some of the after-school funding, which enables some of the after-school programs to extend through the summer months. So some of our after-school programs who actually worked in schools and would ordinarily have to end when school was over was able to get some funding to extend their programs through the summer, and that was great for some of our programs. Also, we have our Enoch Pratt Library who had several programs for youth of all ages to participate in. For the future, We're looking at the feasibility of hosting a citywide summit to bring awareness to this important issue and garner more public support, to look at best practices and to see how we can sustain this work through leveraging more public and private dollars. Thank you.
Great, Sabrina. Thank you very much. Let's hear from Maxine from Denver. What's the role that the city is playing and what's going on around summer learning in Denver?
Well, thanks, Bella. I'm happy to share what we're doing in Denver. Children and youth are our top priority, although I don't think my PowerPoint is working right, is it? Hopefully people will be able to see it. Anyway, children and youth are our top priority, and it's critical that we as a city do all we can to assure that they succeed. Summer is certainly a critical time and an opportunity for the city as a whole to leverage resources to provide programs to keep kids engaged and learning over the summer months. Denver's approach to reducing summer learning loss is to extend what we know about quality after-school programs into the summer months and provide a variety of diverse programs that include academics and enrichment. Another goal is to create access for low-income students to be able to participate in activities and programs they couldn't typically afford. Denver offers numerous summer programs, but I just want to briefly highlight a few of the programs that are led by the city, the school district, and then one collaborative effort that we are seeing as a promising practice called Denver Camp. The city's Parks and Recreation offers a variety of low-cost summer enrichment camps and sports programs. In addition, swimming pools throughout the city are free all summer for Denver youth. Parks also provides enrichment for the Summer Scholars Program. Summer Scholars is a community-based organization that delivers programs in schools throughout the school year. The summer program is a full-day program for low-income elementary-age students that runs for 6 weeks and includes intensive reading intervention coupled with daily enrichment and recreation. Each summer it serves about 1,000 students in several school sites. The literacy instruction is offered one-on-one or in very small groups, and virtually all students that participate in the program improve their reading ability, and many return to school in the fall ahead of where they left in the spring. To create access for our youngest learners, those under the age of 5, and their families, the Mayor's Office for Education and Children created the 5x5 Project, which is a partnership with 12 of Denver's cultural venues, investing $4 million in in-kind services. Head Start families receive unlimited year-round admission and free educational opportunities, such as ballet lessons and swimming lessons. Head Start staff also receive free access to venues and professional development opportunities and materials to connect their students' learning experience at the cultural venues to the classroom curriculum. We are seeing very positive evaluation results with increased vocabulary and verbal skills in our young learners, as well as many other benefits for families and the cultural organizations that participate. Finally, we work with City Council to develop YouthLink, a printed guide of summer programs, and programs are also located on the city's GIS mapping website along with after-school programs. Moving on to the school district. The school district provides 3 main summer opportunities aimed at reducing summer learning loss. The ELL Academy is available for 3rd and 4th grade students and is focused on building language development. It also includes literacy, math, and enrichment components. Preliminary data shows that 60% of students grew 1 or more linguistic level in the state English proficiency assessment, and the rest have been able to maintain the gains from the previous year. The district also offers 6th and 9th grade academies. These programs run for 2 weeks prior to school beginning in the fall and are focused on transition and building literacy, math, and resiliency skills. Evaluation for the 9th grade academies is demonstrating positive impacts on school engagement, attendance, and academic performance, all critical to keeping students on track to graduate. Finally, I get to share Denver Camp. Denver Camp was created a couple of years ago by DQAC, which is the Denver Quality After School Connection. It's a coalition of youth service providers working together to promote the importance of after-school programs. Denver Camp is an innovative collaborative summer program with in-kind program services worth approximately $400,000 from 30 community-based providers. It brings together some of Denver's best academic enrichment providers into 2 locations to serve about 400 low-income students at no cost to families. We've not had the resources yet to invest in a formal evaluation of the program, but student surveys are measuring growth in a variety of factors such as teamwork and self-confidence. Denver Camp is becoming a promising practice and has been replicated in 2 other Colorado communities. And DQAC is continuing to look for funding and for ways to integrate strength into the program and ways to reduce summer learning loss. And now I think we're going to open up for questions.
That's right. Thank you very much, Maxine. Very exciting work happening in Denver as well. And again, to those on the line, I think you can see both from Baltimore and Denver's examples, the role of partnerships is critical, and a lot of new opportunities and strategies can be implemented through that mechanism. So I'll turn over to Dara to share some of the questions that have come in. And for those of you on the phone, go ahead and continue to type in your questions on the panel.
Well, starting from the top, clearly there's many questions coming in around financing and how to go to scale. So I'll direct the first questions to Ron. Ron, I thought first you could talk about some of the ESEA, NCLB reauthorization funds and the stimulus ARA dollars. Carrie Dennison asked, what is the timeline on the reauthorization for ESEA, and when will the new ESA be passed and taken into effect? And Elna Jean-Teen asked, are the recovery funds available to any organizations providing youth development during the after-school and summer months? And how do we tap into this funding to improve programming?
Yeah. The timeline on the reauthorization of ESEA is not firm and fixed. My sense and that of others is that it's not going to be in this, certainly in this calendar year, probably be in the next. In terms of how to use ARA resources, again, the biggest pot of money that we see with the most potential to support summer learning programs and positive youth development and education is in Title I. And the best way, I think, from an organization standpoint, particularly community-based organizations, is to start building relationships with principals, with school district Title I directors, to really understand how to access those dollars, and to make sure and make the case at school board meetings and at other opportunities to talk with superintendents and other district officials about the importance of using Title I funds to give more kids access to quality summer learning programs. So those are some keys. It's typically administered through either the district office or in some districts where there's a more decentralized approach to Title I funds. It's typically at the principal level where those relationships need to be built.
Ron, another listener, Tammy Frana, asked also if you have any specific suggestions on how people on the line could tap child care dollars and also provide food during the summer months, and where that funding comes from.
Yeah, the food funding comes from USDA in the form of reimbursements, and there's certainly an opportunity to work with existing providers of summer meals, whether that's schools or rec centers, to build stronger partnerships with those providers to expand summer meals and summer food. There are a lot of creative ways, and actually we profiled in the paper what Washington D.C. did in terms of expanding opportunities for food and for meals, and they did it creatively by going where the kids were and into parks and recreation centers, into neighborhood and community organizations, and delivering meals rather than having a set number of places where kids could eat and expecting them to come, but really going to where kids are and really understanding that side of things. I think there's some real opportunities with the child care vouchers. There's a lot of organizations that could and should be applying and getting those reimbursements that could take on a broader agenda beyond just providing care for kids during the summer, but looking at ways that child care providers can actually take on a stronger learning agenda. I think that's certainly a really promising idea.
Thanks, Ron. I'm going to switch it over to Mary because we've got some really interesting questions coming in about the research and evaluation on summer learning programs as well. So Mary, one comes from Wendy Natick. She asked, what's the intensity of successful programs? What are the days, weeks, and hours? Just getting at what the proper dosage is for getting real impact.
That's a good question. It's hard to differentiate because most of the programs that I reviewed occur on a daily basis, and they occur on a daily basis 5 days a week, about 6 hours per day for about 6 weeks typically. So, you know, successful programs as well as those that did not necessarily have impacts, you know, had that level of intensity. So it was difficult to draw any conclusions based on, you know, what level of intensity is needed. It seems like you should have at least that amount based on the research.
Okay, Mary, thank you for that. Jessica Stork asked, are there specific ideas you have about how to implement the standards framework that you kind of alluded to when you were talking about promising practices for summer learning programs, and if you're aware of any state or national standards that are used to ensure quality? And maybe, Ron, after Mary answers, you could talk about standards development for summer programming as well.
Yes, I think the best source of that is the Center for Summer Learning, and so I think that, and that's, you know, of course, Ron's center. So there isn't, you know, any. I mean, I think that's the best guide for looking at what standards summer learning programs should follow to be able to try to implement best practices.
Yeah, and I would just chime in that a great resource for that is our website at www.summerlearning.org. We have a set of characteristics, of 9 characteristics of quality summer learning programs, again, based on the research that's been done on programs that have impact on academic and developmental outcomes for kids that matter. And we're in the process right now of developing a quality improvement system that maps to those standards and those characteristics of quality programs in order to be able to help districts and community-based organizations improve the quality of their programs and move more programs into you know, having higher impact on performance measures that really matter.
I can also add that a lot can be drawn from the out-of-school time literature in general on what are standards for program quality, and they also apply to summer programs. So I would also refer to those.
So from a practical standpoint, I'm going to interject with my own question. Maxine, could you talk about how the city has allocated funds for after-school programs to extend into the summer in Baltimore, what the funding is and what's the requirements?
In Denver, the majority of the funding for summer programs comes through the city's Parks and Recreation Department and their general fund dollars. The other thing that we've been good at doing is leveraging partnerships with community-based organizations to leverage resources. So for instance, for Denver Camp, the majority of the services are provided in kind by the best youth service providers in Denver. And so really it's pulling resources out there so that we can bring people together to offer the programs. And then we search continually for dollars from foundations and from private donors to boost the success. And for the 5x5 project, again, the majority of the funding comes in kind from our cultural partners. So it's really been about creating partnerships and building those relationships with community organizations to leverage resources.
In Baltimore, I would say the same thing. With our recreation and parks, we again were able to partner with the schools so the young people could transition right into that enrichment portion and component of the programming. And so that happened in 33 centers. Also, the city, with the dollars that we allocate for summer school, again, some of those dollars were reallocated for some programs who wanted to extend their after school to summer. And so we're requesting more money to enable some more programs to do that for the next year. But again, during these fiscal times, partnerships and the collaboration is really the way that we're going to really need to go during these hard fiscal times.
Thanks. That's very true. A reality check for all of us. A question to all of you. Valerie Wilkinson asked if private and faith-based programs, some of the best partners to city efforts in the summer months, can access Title I monies on their own. And another question related from Susan Worley was that one of the biggest issues regarding collaborating with CBOs is that the state educational agencies, the SEAs, and their summer school guidelines often prohibits operating summer school programs with CBOs like the Boys and Girls Clubs, the YMCAs, or the rec department. And in order to have a program be aided through that funding source, the collaborative entities must be another school district or regional educational entity. Do any of you have any insights about how to navigate some of the restrictions of public education funding?
I can start. I mean, the key is the development of the relationships with principals and school districts, and I know it takes time and it takes trust and it takes a fair degree of engagement on the part of community-based organizations to be able to do that, but it's absolutely essential. And then when there are policies, I think, and this gets to the point that I made earlier, that there tends to be an overly broad or overly narrow policy approach here, and there's no reason why that in developing a comprehensive summer school model that states and local governments shouldn't be promoting exactly this kind of partnership between schools and community-based organizations. You get more comprehensive programs. You get programs that parents and community want so that they have a full day of opportunity for kids, and it seems like our policies have yet to catch up with what we know really works in terms of developing more comprehensive programs. And I think we need everybody to push really hard, either at at both the state and the local level, to hold up examples of where people are able to work through these kinds of obstacles and greater partnership together. But it really does take work, and in some cases it's going to take changes in policy to encourage that more openness. And in the papers we start to highlight some of those directions, and particularly in the financing paper, highlight a few examples of places where that's beginning to happen. But again, as we're looking at building stronger systems, it's going to take time and it's going to take real focus to be able to make that happen.
In Baltimore City, we do have some of our community-based organizations that partnered with the schools to be able to assist them with their summer learning. The Y here in Baltimore, we have a Child First after-school program that also receives funding from the school system to assist with the summer learning portion of it. And so again, as Ron stated, the relationship with the principal is so important, because they are able to look at their dollars and figure out how they are able to pay some of these community-based organizations to assist them in the summer learning, especially the enrichment component.
And aside from partnering with schools, there's some interest among the audience about another really critical public player, which is our libraries. So, Maxine, I thought you could talk a little bit about the summer reading program in Denver. It was actually one of the effective programs mentioned in the Child Trends research. Sally Shaybook asked, where do public libraries fit in, and do public children's libraries, both traditionally and practically, play a role? Maxine?
Sure, libraries definitely play a role. I didn't mention it in my remarks specifically, but we have a summer reading program through our library system that provides basically reading. It's a reading incentive program, but provides all kinds of different events for different ages to support summer reading through throughout, and it serves about 30,000 students actually participate in that. In addition, with our Denver Camp model, the collaborative piece that I had talked about, Denver Public Libraries goes in and delivers services as well to that program. So libraries definitely are a key to providing opportunities for reading enhancement.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. We had a question coming from Sherry English asking about helping students get through high school to high school completion and beyond, and if any of you have any experiences with effective teen programming, particularly for juniors and seniors in high school.
In Denver, our efforts for high school students are really aimed through workforce development and summer work programs and job training programs. Our efforts through the district are really aimed at ninth graders and making sure that they're on track to graduate. I'm not aware of any specific programs for juniors and seniors other than those that are based on workforce development.
One thing that we're working on that we need to do a better job of documenting nationally, our program specifically focused on the 8th to 9th grade transition. The summers before and after 9th grade is critical windows in the development of young people and making sure that they're solidly transitioned to high school. And then we need to foster more innovation for kids, particularly at the junior and senior level, where we can combine a workforce experience, a job experience with young people, as well as the kind of college preparatory and other kinds of academic support skills. We tend to see two different things. We either see high school remediation, credit recovery models, or straight up workforce development model, and typically those two systems don't talk to each other or integrate with each other. And we see that as a major missed opportunity, so that we want to see more districts offer programs for high school students more flexibly, so they can recover credits, and as well as hold down jobs during the summer, during the day, and maybe take courses at night. Doing more blended programming that includes both the job component as well as some kinds of academic support. So that's definitely an area where we need more intervention, more innovation.
You know, I'll just say this is.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, this is Bella, that at National League of Cities we're also going to be focusing in on programs for older youth to see programs that cities are involved in, either they fund or they support or they're a partner, and we'll be issuing a strategy guide on that next spring or early January, February. So we'll be sure to make that available as well.
And I just wanted to add, this is Mary from Child Trends, that the one program that promoted or successfully impacted high school completion integrated both career development and academic components. It was actually a residential program at a university for at-risk sophomores and juniors. But interestingly, you know, they were given a part-time work placement, and they also were involved in recreational activities, and they also received 3 hours of academic instruction per day. Mentoring. Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you for adding that. Well, we are right about at our time. I want to thank everyone, all of our speakers, for their participation in this webinar. I think we've all gained a lot of new information, from research to policy to funding examples, as well as practical examples at the city level. So thank you to Ron and Mary and Sabrina and Maxine, and of course to the Wallace Foundation for hosting this webinar in partnership with the National League of Cities. I wanted to also let you know about these two publications that the Foundation has commissioned. As you see on your screen, Thinking About Summer Learning Through Perspectives of the Child Trends Report, as well as the Investments in Building a Citywide Out-of-School Time System, a six-city study that the Foundation commissioned with the Finance Project. Again, this webinar will be available on the Wallace website at wallacefoundation.org, as well as on the NLC website at nlc.org. I believe as well on the Summer Learning website at summerlearning.org, and the Child Trends website at childtrends.org. And there are a number of other resources that would be related to summer learning as well as out-of-school time on all of our websites, so we encourage you to take a look and join to get updates. And as far as NLC, we have a specific network on after-school, out-of-school time, our APAN network, and we encourage you to join that as well. So thank you all very much. I appreciate everyone's participation, and thank you to our audience for your engagement and your very interesting and timely questions. Thank you all. We will now wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.